Hi, G here. I still have more to say, more tales to tell, more stories to story. Yeah, sounds about right. So I moved to the States about 6 years ago, and when I first moved here, I was completely broke, which meant I needed a job. So today I'm here to tell you guys about the magical time where I used to work at the wonderful, wonderful land of GameStop. And I know there's been a lot of controversy surrounding GameStop and some hardcore stories about working there and their questionable business practices. But I have to say, I didn't experience any of that. Mostly because I was only employed there for a month, and I really only worked there for 2 days in that whole month. Yeah, the hours sucked. I guess I did experience that part. So I guess working at GameStop did not solve any of my money problems at all. In fact, it actually made them slightly worse. But more on that later. So I'd applied online for the clerk position. I think there's a more fancy word for it, like video game expert, diplomat, ambassador, treasure hunter, quality guru, something. But I'll just refer to it as clerk because, that's what the job was. So I got a call a few days later asking me to go in the next day for an interview. So I did. I drove down there, and before going in, I decided to have a one-on-one with myself. You know, for the confidence boost. As I had no idea what I was in for. If I'd only known. I would still have the minute I wasted talking to myself in the rearview mirror. In the middle of a busy parking lot with people staring and taking pictures and calling 911 because there was a crazy man on the loose talking to himself. So I got into the store and told my fellow future coworker, "Hello, fellow future coworker. My name's G. Yep. Just like the spot. I know, I'm recycling this bit, but that just goes to show how green I am. And I'm here to take your job and strip you away from your livelihood. Here, get used to change." In reality, I just approached him shaking, nervous as hell, watching how most of my confidence had stayed outside the door, and I used what little I had left to tell him. I'm here for the interview. To which he said, "Run! Save yourself! Do not do it!" Follow me is this way. So I followed the guy to the back room where the store manager received me. All it took was one side of her to know this was the right job for me. Because she was hella cute! And I wanted in. Wanted in as in getting to know her and, getting into her life, not into her pants. Just clarifying. Though it did cross my mind. So I got into the back room and I was eager to be alone with her. This was no longer a job interview. This was a love interview. Yeah, I didn't care about the job anymore. Little did I know, she was not the only one conducting the interview. There were 2 other female store managers from other stores in there. And I thought, foursome. Nah, I'm just kidding. I got extremely nervous. I've been living in the country for about 6 months or so if you think my English is beep right now, just imagine how it was back then. I was so nervous, I actually saw what remained of my confidence lift my body and exit the building. No biggie, I thought. I still got this. 5 minutes, in and out. You gotta nail this. So they asked me to take a seat, and so I tried. Yeah, you heard that right. I said tried, not did, because I pulled a chair. I commanded my body to succumb just a little to gravity, just enough to lower my butt down and sit on the chair. No big deal. I've sat down so many times before, I'm an expert on the field by now. I've sat on benches, couches, foldable chairs, plastic chairs, fences, grass, rocks, laps, just about everywhere. That wooden chair had nothing on me. But my body failed me that day. I missed the chair and fell down. I've relived that moment in my head over and over and over again. Trying to figure out what went wrong. Who was responsible for this? Was it my hands? My butt? Or karma? I did steal a chocolate bar 15 years earlier. I think I paid for it that day. With shame. So I got up, I laughed, they laughed, Mark Zuckerberg laughed, and it was all just fine and dandy. The rest of the interview was just your standard interview. They would ask a question, and I would reply with whatever they wanted to hear. So why do you wanna work here? Why? I don't. I just want her. Just what they wanted to hear. About 2 days later or so, I got a call back just to tell me that I got the job. And I was so excited for that phone call since now I had her phone number. I'm pretty sure I got hired just because they were afraid I was gonna sue. Because of the faulty chair? It was totally not my fault that I fell down. I got hired out of pity, I thought. And I was totally A-okay with that. A with that. A with that. It sounds kind of weird. Okay, I'm getting out of topic again. Told you this was gonna happen. So the first day that I was scheduled to work was about 3 weeks after I got hired. And I was scheduled for 5 hours or so, but nothing really interesting happened in those 5 hours. My second day, though, was on Black Friday. I was scheduled to be there from 2 a.m. to 11 a.m. So I wasn't too worried about the first 5 to 6 hours of my shift. It was the last 2 to 3 hours that scared the beep out of me. Because again, my English was shh. I know I'm so green. And I had virtually no training other than saying hi whenever a customer would come in, ask for an ID if they were paying with credit card, and get whatever game they were buying from the drawer and put it in the box when the transaction was completed. That was all my knowledge. And I actually managed to boop them all up eventually. The first few hours went by pretty uneventful. A few customers came in, but I was there with like 3 other people. So I would just hide behind the game racks and pretend that I was arranging some game cases or something. At some point, I think around 4 a.m., we were laying on the floor just telling stories, since we find a blind spot in the security cameras. For some reason, they were all pointing towards the empty game cases, instead of somewhere more important like, you know, the back room's door, which became our new hanging spot. About 7 a.m., that's when a bunch of people started coming in and they all wanted like assistance, and they were hoping for me like to know stuff, which I didn't. So I would just look them straight in the eye and straight up lie to them. Plain and simple. During those 9 hours that I was scheduled to work, I did 3 main things that you need to know. 1. I gave wrong information as if my life depended on it. 2. I answered the phone once and gave wrong information. This guy wanted to know if we had some console in stock, and I said yes, but we didn't. So the guy came down to the store and was furious when he found out we actually didn't have the console, so he just left all mad. Then I found out we actually did have the console, but it was too late by then. He had already left. And 3, I sent the guy home without his games. Yeah, I was a pretty crappy employee. So remember how I said that we needed to get the game disc from the drawers and put him on the game case after we sold the game? Well, I didn't. I just allowed the guy to pay with credit card without showing any ID and sent him home with the game cases. The guy came back an hour later just to tell us no game. So he had driven all the way back home from GameStop, eager to play his new games. One of the games was Final Fantasy 13, just to find out he had no games, just cases. Surprisingly, he wasn't mad though. He was pretty chill about the whole ordeal, unlike console guy before him. So he laughed, we laughed, Mark Zuckerberg laughed. The rest of my shifts went by pretty uneventful. So yeah, those were literally the only 2 days I actually worked for GameStop. But there's more! Shortly after, I was told to pick up my first check. Finally! I was so excited! So I drove down there for the sole reason of picking up my check. All my lack of actual work and mess-ups had actually led up to this very moment. And so I picked up my $70 check. I felt like a millionaire. I was about to make it rain all over the place. I was about to crash my car. Yep. As soon as I got my check and was driving home, I got into a car accident, which I will be covering in another video, because this is gonna be long. Shortly after, winter break arrived and I was going to be off from college for about a month or so. So I decided to go back to Mexico for a while. So I didn't feel like driving all the way back to the store just to resign, especially since I was still traumatized from my first real car crash. Yeah, that was my first. Which you'll get to know about later. So I decided to just call them and said, okay, bye.